dodgy ending, just like having a real drummer.
Hey!
Was that our introduction or was that an interlude? I don't know. We'll use it as the intro, shall we?
Can do if you like, yeah.
Well, welcome to All About the Bass. I'm the captain.
Oh, I'm Nathan. How you doing?
And today we are answering that long unanswered question.
The eternal question.
The eternal. What is the difference between a Squire Jazz bass, a Mexican standard jazz bass, and an American standard jazz bass? And I know that there are probably another 20 or so other Fender jazz basses that sit, in between and above this range and all that kind of stuff. But we've just kind of gone with the three.
Well, this is good, isn't it? Because this is like entry level is where you start, and then right in the middle, and then I guess this is the top of the line. Or?
No, not really. I mean, it's well. So the jazz bass was introduced into the Fender lineup 1960. Ironically, it wasn't called a jazz bass originally. It was called a deluxe bass, and it was the sort of the bass equivalent of the Jazz Master when they were sort of introduced as two sort of deluxe lines, so almost like a deluxe version of a P bass.
Right.
But
Because
anyway,
it had two pickups on, right? And it gave you
more tones and
tonal variations,
different kind of a neck profile, so it's a little bit thinner than a P bass.
Right. Yeah.
And but anyway, it soon just became known as the jazz bass, and it's been sort of popular really ever since. I don't really know which is more popular, jazz bass or P bass. They sort of do a bit of this and that. But it's it comes in many, many different guises from Fender, from sort of your entry level Squire stuff. This is the bass that comes with the starter pack if you fancy learning to play.
And how much is that?
£200 will pick you up the Squire Affinity. This is probably most popularly bought in the starter pack, which where you get the amp and the gig bag and all your bits and bobs and everything like that. But you can just buy it on its own if you want. It's about £200. Then we jump up to the standard. Now, some of you may refer to this as the Mexican standard, or you sometimes see them referred to on forums as MIM, made in Mexico. Fender they just call it the standard jazz bass. That's about £700. And then the American standard, which obviously is, I guess that's been the one constant model through the Fender catalogue since the dawn of time, the American standard. Jazz is about £1,300. Some of these prices will vary a little bit depending on the colour that you go for.
But that's a big difference, right? 200, 1,300, that's
Yep.
There's a lot of money in between those two.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, again, we always talk about law of diminishing returns and all that kind of stuff. I try not to buy into this whole expectation that, if you've got a bass that's 6 times as expensive, therefore it's 6 times as good. You wouldn't go and buy a £15,000 or £10,000 car and then say, well, surely the £60,000 car drives 6 times as fast, would you? It's like, well, obviously it doesn't kind of work like that. Well, it depends how bad the £10,000 car was. Maybe if it was a really terrible car.
No, you're right. It would never drive 6 times.
But it wouldn't go 6 times faster. So don't, the whole kind of, is it 6 times better is sort of a pointless discussion, really.
I know what you mean, though.
Nothing ever is. It just is better, and the amount that it's
we'll tell you why it's better, won't we?
Or at least it's supposed to be better. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of the. It certainly costs more to build.
We're going to tell you why it's supposed to be better.
Yes. So look, do you want to start with the Squire? Which way do you want to go? Do you want to go top down or bottom up?
Let's go bottoms
up.
Why not? So we've got the same finish on all of these guitars.
You don't have to have the same. You don't have to have this finish. There are lots of different finishes. So what are the constants throughout? The constants throughout regardless of whether you buy Squire or American or whatever, is they're going to be a 34-inch scale length. That is the standard kind of jazz bass scale length. Right. They are going to have a similar neck profile, although not an identical neck profile. Yep. They're going to have the 2 pickups. Again, you can get deluxe versions of these and things that'll do different things, but you're going to have the 2 pickups that are wound like with reverse polarity, so that the idea is they're hum cancelling pickups. A little bit the same idea of kind of when you had the middle pickup in a Strat wound the other way around to the other 2. So again, you get this kind of hum cancelling effect. And the shape obviously is constant. So it's a big bass. Hasn't followed that kind of modern fashion for being like a compact sort of
Just
bass.
because it's cheaper doesn't mean that it's like being made by an idiot. You know, it's been like, you know, look, it feels exactly the same as that. That's what I'm trying to say. You know,
Yeah.
they haven't just gone.
Oh, for sure.
200
I mean,
that, you know, it feels.
In all fairness,
just the same as that.
On the way the bodies are made, I suspect that the CNC machines that are used in the Far East to make these will be of a very similar sort of, you know, construction to the CNC machines that they'll use in the States.
CNC, enlighten us.
I don't even know what that stands for. But you know that, you know, you put lumps of wood in and a computer thing cuts out the shape that you want it to be. I don't know what CNC stands for, but that's what they are. Obviously, that the cheaper you go, what you'll tend to find is that timber will be sourced. You know, that it will become more about where can I get, you know, enough timber to make 10,000 guitars a week, and where can I buy timber that's the sort of price that I need to pay to build a guitar that's going to be £200.
Well, this is the first thing I noticed, just from between those two, is this is a lot lighter.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know.
So you'll certainly find, and that goes for all guitar brands really. You know, that clearly when you're making a guitar that's going to be 6 times the price, you've got a bit more budget to say, well, we don't just have to have wood that is, you know, super readily available in, you know, by bucket loads. Although again, some people will say if you go back to the you know, the origins of Fender, and you know, why was alder and ash used for Strats? A lot of it was because of its availability. You know, it was relatively easy to obtain, and relatively cheap to buy. So yeah, so the wood is older, whether you buy the
Older than what?
Yes, older than something.
Older.
So it is older whether you buy the American or the Squire. But as I said, it's you know, it will be. You know, you can source different kinds of older. You can source older from you know, rapidly grown renewable stuff.
Newer older.
Yes, the oxymoron. You know, but of course, when you get into the more expensive stuff, they can obviously be a bit more choosy about the grain and the weight and the, you know, where it's from and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
But whatever. So it's a polyurethane finish on the Squire. It's polyester finish on the Mexican. Ooh. And then urethane. Now I know we had this whole thing when we did the P-base.
No, urethane.
Yes, and none of us could really find anything on the internet that would suggest why polyester, polyurethane, or urethane finishes were different. The one that everybody is probably more familiar with that absolutely is different the way it's applied is the nitrocellulose, which you'll get when you go up to the sort of American vintage series and custom shop series. That's originally how they were finished back in there.
Do you make 100% Egyptian cotton finishes?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get that sort of luxurious feel in your bed, silk.
Nicer than polyester.
I don't use Egyptian cotton. It's pure silk for me. Is my entire
black
silk.
Yeah, but it stains terribly, doesn't it?
You get the sort of Rice Krispie noise as you get into bed every night.
Nice.
Anyway, let's maybe not use that segment. So the other common feature on a jazz bass will be what the 3 knobs do, or at least if you buy a standard jazz bass it will be. So you've got a volume for this pickup, a volume for this pickup, and a tone control. Very simple, not active, passive circuit. So let's have a little listen.
Okie dokie. So front pickup is the bassiest sounding one. Back pickup, honkier, more middly because of where it's positioned on the body. And then you've got both together. A not really nice full.
Yeah, it's a fat sound.
Yeah, it's a full fat sound. And I guess we should just look at the tone.
For sure.
So on the front, if I take the tone off. Makes it a bit more mellow. On. Off. Back pickup. Tone off. On. So you can hear the difference there.
Massive difference. Just in case you're wondering as well, we have, what you're hearing is the what's called the pre EQ DI'd output from the amplifier. So what essentially it's pretty much the same as if we just plugged straight into a mixing desk and you were hearing it. So there's very little character from the amplifier.
Yeah, you shouldn't be really getting anything from the amp. This is purely for us.
Yeah.
So we can hear.
Yeah. So you're kind of hearing, if you're sort of thinking maybe they haven't dialed in like the greatest sounding bass tone, if you like, for this. That's kind of wasn't the point of the demo. We've tried to strip away any characteristic that the amplifier might be adding, and you just hear what the bass sounds like. So
tone off on both.
Yep.
Just for the hell of it. On. So obviously, because it's a passive EQ, it really just kind of rolls the top end off.
Just roll off, isn't it? Yeah. I guess, you know, looking at the Squire, I mean, it's got to be probably the best value of the three, just in the sense of it, you know, it's a perfectly playable, good sounding classic bass. Some of the stuff that you might look at and go, if I was going to gig with this every night, or, you know, regularly, perhaps the bridge doesn't look like the sturdiest kind of bridge. It's certainly, you've got no option to string through the body here, and componently it looks more fragile, if that's the right word. It's a bit more sort of weedy, isn't it? And one of the things that I've noticed, I've got a Squire classic vibe Strat that I modded up and I do really like, but I've absolutely noticed that a couple of years down the line now, the neck isn't quite as true as it used to be. You can kind of see the odd hump in the sort of fretboard and stuff like that. So I'm sort of thinking that it's a sort of, and it's certainly the kind of guitar that if I leave it for a month or two before I go and play it again, it probably needs just a little adjustment just to get it back to how it would be. Whereas with more expensive guitars that I've got, they tend to stay more sort of stable, if you like, without so much need for adjustment. Okay. What have we got tuner-wise on there? They're pretty basic, are they?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it stands to reason that, you know, with the price difference, something's got to give. So, you know, with this bass, all the ingredients are going to be cheaper. You know, all the parts on it are going to be cheaper made.
This actually, whilst you've got it flipped over, here's a good example of, again, how they will often make these bodies cheaper. So you can see that this is made of 4 to 5 pieces of alder that are then glued together, and there's nothing really tonally wrong with that, to be honest with you. Some people really would just like to see the only thing that people find off-putting about that is just almost what it just does visually, you know, just the fact that you almost get sort of 3 distinct stripes of grain on the back here.
But if you're playing your bass like this, you need help.
And what you should find on the more expensive stuff is it's just a 2-piece, so you just get the down the middle. But it's, as you can imagine, it's much cheaper, you know, and you get much more wood for your money, if you like. If you can glue together strips, there's, you know, much less wastage. Like,
of course, makes a lot of sense.
Only available with a rosewood fretboard on here, whereas the standard and the American standard are available with either rosewood or a maple neck fretboard. Right. But and it's a satin finish neck. Some people may even prefer that, but it's a satin finish neck.
That means that it hasn't been lacquered or varnished or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that there's a sealant that goes on there, like but there's no lacquer.
No, it's not. It's not sticky. It's like an oil finish. I like it. Oh, it's nice. It's almost as if you'd sanded it down if it had been varnished. You know,
absolutely. And I mean, ironically, isn't it incredible? There's like a tiny bit of flame in this neck. You know, it's like if it was on a sort of a custom shop guitar, you'd probably sell that as a flame maple neck guitar, but that obviously is completely hit and miss as to whether you get that or not on a guitar.
There you go then.
So that's the Squire. What we're going to also do at the end of this video is we'll redo all the sections of playing in little sort of 10 or 20 second sound bites, but completely back to back, so that you can hear the A/B against the 3 sounds.
I will attempt to play the same thing.
Well, you've got to try and remember. Do you want to even do like a 10-second thing now that is the riff that you're going to use for every bass at the end? No, you're just a professional. You just know it.
No, because I won't remember.
Just
That's what I'm
it.
saying. I can't remember what I played 30 seconds ago.
So let's go over to the standard. What I like to refer to as the Mexican standard. Now, actually, I can see immediately on this. This, I think, is a 3-piece body. So. Still, it's definitely a 3-piece body, so it's one less than the Squire one. I think it is only the American ones where you start
Heavy.
to see
That's a lot heavier.
two-piece. Yeah, again, I'm not sure. You know, I think this is just how it is with this kind of guitar. You know, the wood is, some bits will be heavier and some bits will be lighter, and just is what it is. So what can we see here? Have we got a very similar bridge, or is it identical, or is it just a slightly bit better? You know, sort of chunkier. Looks just a smidgen chunkier, maybe, or does it look identical? Apart from it's got black springs.
It looks kind of similar, but to be honest with you, I think they're all going to look similar because that's what it's supposed to look like.
Well, the Americans,
but it's going to be the
chunkier
material has got to be different, hasn't it?
That's true.
You know, that's the point.
So they are different pickups on the standard, although again they don't claim to be any sort of, you know, special custom shop pickup or anything like that. It's just a different pickup. And on this now you've got the lacquered fretboard. But still with the sort of satin, but it's a different kind of sealant again on the back, so it gives it a different kind of feel, doesn't it? Have we got the open cog machine heads as well still?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Although again, slightly different hardware, they look a bit chunkier than the ones on the Squire.
Of course, well that's what you'd hope if you're going to spend 3 times the dough, of course,
so,
yes.
Let's have a little listen to this. What can it do?
Okay, yeah, well. Front. That's louder, isn't it?
Louder, yeah.
That's much louder for a start.
Now, again, we did some adjustments here so that the loudness shouldn't be anything to do with pickup height, because the pickup height is all roughly the same.
All I adjusted on that was the bridge saddle height, actually.
Right.
So out the box, I just tweaked that a turn and a half on each screw, just to make it play better.
Yeah, yeah.
Back one. It's a very nice honky.
It is. It's a little bit more, isn't there? Hard to know what that. I mean, that could literally just be the pickups, or it could be a combination of a bit of everything. You know.
Yeah. Well, and obviously the the circuitry inside. I guess I know it's not a very complicated circuit.
There's no preamp or anything, is there? It's just pickups.
But all the components, I guess, it's just going to have more output. It's got really quite a lot of welly on this.
Yeah.
Because we used it before up against an Ibanez, and it was like much louder than that.
I know, which is bizarre, really, because the Ibanez was the active bass, and the passive one seemed to have more output, didn't it? But
well, maybe that's active EQ as opposed to.
Could be.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, full everything on. His face. Oh man!
It just goes to show, though, when you do that, just how much give there is in a bass guitar. I mean, you can do that on any or most guitars. You know, I mean, I can probably kind of go, but nothing like as much in terms of a drop. But that kind of gives you an idea of just how much flexibility there is in a bass guitar neck, because it's so much longer than an electric guitar neck.
I'm very strong,
and
that's what it is. I'm deceptively.
But I think a lot of it, you know, I think that's why, you know, bass guitars perhaps do need just generally a bit more maintenance than electric guitars in terms of, you know, truss rod adjustment on the necks and things like that. It's just, I think, you know, there's longer neck, heavy strings pulling it forward. But anyway. So keep playing that one. Let's get the run through of that.
Well, what else do you want? I mean, what?
Did you do all 3 sort of sounds? And
I can do that.
Do that.
Well, I suppose what does it feel like? What's the difference in feel?
That's probably the most important thing that the guys on YouTube won't know. You know, they can hear it, they can see it, but what does it feel like?
What's the difference in feel? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick this one up again. Because the only way really of knowing is to do here. Yeah.
What, like nothing in it?
Not really.
No?
Not a lot.
Fair enough.
Not a lot, no.
Well, I don't think there has to be.
I think this might be a little bit chunkier, the neck on this, maybe.
Chunkier in a, you know, but if you had to sort of say, does one feel nicer to play, or, you know, is there really?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that's fair enough.
No.
So that's a score for the Squire then, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm assuming that the Squire will kind of what's the right word? You know, assuming that the Squire is going to stand up to the amount of playing that you're likely to do on it, then that's fine.
Well, I guess that they should feel essentially the same if they've been modelled on exactly the same specs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean they've got the same scale length, the same radius, so the curvature of the fretboard. I was just going to have a look to see if is there a nut width, 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch. So they're the same. Yeah, they are the same.
So that's really why they don't really feel a lot different.
No, so it's just really going to be the actual feel of the back of the neck. You know, that sort of feel versus. I think that's quite a different feel in terms of its sort of glidiness. But whether or not it's really that notable when you're playing, I don't know. You don't really feel that.
No. Do you?
I don't know. Have you got any nerve endings in your hands, or have they all? Not anymore. Is it a terrible accident that you have when you?
I don't know. Maybe. Oh, mate.
Well, look, that's fine. So let's.
Feels all right to me. But obviously, the big difference is sound.
It did sound, pretty different, didn't it?
It does sound very different. Yeah. So
yeah.
Obviously, that's where your money's going.
And there's a lot of people that'll say, "Why don't you take a Squire and upgrade the pickups and all that kind of stuff?" And that's actually and why not? You know, I think there's probably a slight negative with that in that. I think if you upgrade a Squire and then come to resell it in the future, you never really get any value back on the upgrades. People will just go, I'm just going to give you the same price for it as if you hadn't done any upgrades to it.
But also, but going back on something you said earlier, of course, if you're going to go out and gig with this thing, week after week, to be honest with you, if they're cheaper components, this eventually is going to just fall to bits.
Well, I guess, and that's the unknown, isn't it? I mean, that's the bit where I suppose reputations are built, and at the end of the day, I suppose you go, how many pro bass players do you see out there playing Squire versus how many pro bass players do you see playing Fender? Yeah. And you would go, well, you don't really see any, or very, very few playing Squire, and I guess to an extent, some of you might just go, well, it's snob value or whatever this on a scene with that brand, but I suspect there's probably plenty of players out there that just know that the Fender is a slightly more solidly built instrument and less likely to let them down.
Tonally, I'm quite happy with the fact that this is a more
tone, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's what you're getting. The sound, which of course is it's the main part of it.
Well, sound and feel, isn't it? Or if you're me, just looks. That's literally all I go for when I'm buying any of my guitars. All right, let's go on to the American Standard.
Okie dokie.
Now, the American Standard makes a bold claim on the sticker on the front that it comes with the custom shop pickups, upgraded with custom shop pickups. So let's hope that these sound great. I can see straight away that you've got the kind of rolled fingerboard edges on here, so I'm hoping that you're going to go, oh yeah, it feels a bit more sort of lived in, or you might go, I didn't even notice.
You see, now you've said it. Now you've said it. I couldn't live without it. I probably wouldn't have noticed.
See, I'm different on guitars. I'm completely, as soon as it's rolled edges versus non-rolled edges, I'm all over that.
Wow.
It is a different bridge.
It's a feminine side.
It is. It is a different bridge.
Very radically different on this one. Yes.
So you have the choice now to string through the body. So if you flip it over.
Ooh.
And you've got your four, you can see strung through the body.
Okay.
And if you go back the other way, or you can string it like the two previous ones are through the end of the bridge like that.
Okay.
And that, people do say that makes a difference to the sound.
This looks more...
It is chunkier.
It's chunkier. It's not one-piece cast, though. That's interesting. You see, look, this is separate. This top is actually separate to that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that was a fairly common... mod on old Fender basses was to upgrade the bridges to the much chunkier.
Because they call this style a bent bit of tin.
It is what I've learned
after we did the P bass
review. The technical term, bent
everybody
bit
said
of tin.
You're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about. That is really what that is. It's one piece of metal.
It's not tin, over. But it's presumably some sort of steel, but it is bent.
Yeah.
And this is a slightly different kind of construction. We'll probably get a zoom in on that.
Sure.
What else have we got? We've got truss rod adjustment now at the bottom of the neck rather than at the top of the neck.
Oh, good point.
Which actually does make it slightly easier, and you've got this sort of recessed bit here. You get a funny tool. Where's the tool?
I don't think it makes it easier.
Does it not?
No, because I'll tell you why. Because these days you don't get an Allen key like an L-shaped thing. That used to make these really difficult.
You don't though. With these, you do get an Allen key. It's only the American. It's only with the American that you get the T-bar.
Is that not working there then?
Yeah, that's cool. It does work, but you don't get one of those with it. I just mean you only get it with the American.
Because that's a much better idea, look, because then you don't... Yeah, with the old style Allen key, it was like a...
It was a pain. I think we've got different machine heads as well, if you flip that over.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they're very sexy.
They're a higher gear ratio machine head, so that means you've got a finer adjustment. Yes. So I'm just trying to work it out. So the machine head turns less
lower.
It's like a, what is it, higher ratio, isn't it? So you move it and the machine head turns less than it would do on one of these.
Well, it's either higher or lower, but whatever it is, it's better.
Whichever. You've got the same kind of idea really with the sort of glossy fretboard and the sort of matte finished. That's the same kind of idea as on the Mexican. They're all bolt-on neck
No
guitars.
fillet thing on this.
No what?
No insert with it. See on these ones. Look.
So this will mean that the neck and the fretboard are cut from one piece of wood, and then it's drilled out down the back to have the truss rod put in.
I see.
And that means that the fretboard you should be able to see is a separate piece of wood glued onto it, which you can just see the line.
Fountain of knowledge, you are.
Yeah. So yes, the neck is separate to the fretboard when it's manufactured. Truss rod goes in, fretboard glued over the top.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
As far as I'm aware, there isn't a better version. There isn't like one is the better.
Oh,
way
okay,
than
it's
the
just
other.
a different manufacturing process.
Yeah. So look, let's hear this bad boy.
Okie dokie. Right, front pickup. I like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's honky. It's got a bit of honk, even though it's the front pickup.
Yeah. It had more clarity to it, I think, didn't it?
Yeah. It's got a bit more bell-like.
Yes.
Can we say that?
I think so.
Back pickup. Oh yeah, that's bags of tone in there.
And that could be anything. That could be the pickups. That could be the different bridge.
Well, I imagine a combination of all.
Yeah, absolutely.
But certainly the pickups are going to play
yeah,
a big part in it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Custom shop pickups, so they're obviously very sexy and expensive. Both pickup.
God, it's loud, isn't it? That it's gone louder all three as we've stepped up through them, hasn't it? Or has that just got more brightness to it, so it's feeling a bit more shrill?
See, the more money you spend, the louder it is.
Yeah. What you can't see is we just turn it up a little bit, basically, in between each.
No, it is, of course. Yeah, it's louder. But it's just the whole sound now is
just fatter.
It's fatter. It's got the sort of bell quality with both pickups on.
Yeah.
It's got a lot more brightness to it.
Yeah. These for the touring player as well, or for the guy who's perhaps putting his bass through a bit more of a sort of heat and humidity sort of wheel. So in the car, get to the gig, maybe periodically the bass stays in the car overnight or the van overnight or whatever. I know. The American standards are the only ones in the range that have the graphite reinforced. They call it a graphite Posiflex. Yeah, so the graphite reinforced neck. So again, as you've essentially got more stuff inside the neck, ensuring that it's not bowing.
There you go.
In any way.
Right.
So I kind of like that. I mean, that doesn't mean that it'll never need adjusting. I think it just means that it needs less adjusting, and that's kind of what I find. I think on guitars and basses, as you go from the least expensive ones that tend to need a little bit more maintenance to the most expensive ones where you can sort of get away with the least maintenance. But it's a nice looking bass, isn't it? It obviously got the tortoiseshell sort of the faux tortoiseshell scratch plate on there, which I think looks kind of cool. And I think the American range has the widest range of colours. Again, I'll put links to all these in the description below so that you can check them out. Okay. But now we wanted to sort of do the sort of the acid test of just like boom, 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 didn't we? So that these guys can kind of hear them back to back.
Yeah, that's the important thing really is being able to hear them without us
waffling,
jabbering on nonsense.
What was it? Go back to the rolled edges a bit, because do you feel, are you able to sort of feel anything? Does it feel more comfortable to play than either of the other two, or are you literally just going, do you know what, they're all the same? Because I'm sort of, I wouldn't be surprised if, having been the victim of, several blindfold videos where I've struggled to tell the feel difference between cheaper and expensive guitars. I wouldn't be surprised if you're sort of going, there really isn't a great deal of feel difference.
Well, do you know what? I guess it's subjective.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference to me.
Oh,
but then maybe I'm just not fussy.
No, I don't think. I think again, you know, we play these basses for 15, 20 minutes during a video review. Who's to say if you had these basses for 6 months, I'm sure you'd be much more au fait with kind of the intricacies of the feel and all that kind of stuff. But I'm with you in the sense of I don't necessarily think that it's immediately obvious, you know, in like a 30-second boom, I'll just try this one versus try this one, that there's not necessarily a correlation between, oh, expensive guitars feel great, cheap guitars feel terrible.
Not when you know, factor in the this is 200 quid,
yeah,
and that one's 1,300 quid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a lot of money's worth of difference. So, you know, if you
again without,
I'm not.
Kind of got to. I think a big, you know, whether you're talking about guitars or basses or even amplification and stuff like that. Although, you know, no one's as yet invented a machine that you just sort of put a bit of tree and a bit of metal in one end and it spits an instrument out the other end. Yeah. You know, although you know, lots of machinery is used, you know, CNC machines and pickup winding machines and all that kind of stuff to sort of speed up the process. Yeah. Ultimately, the biggest cost I still think in making an instrument is the human time it takes to assemble it and finish it and
stands to reason that somebody in the US of A is going to charge a lot more money than somebody, because this is made in Indonesia, the Squire.
Yeah, I mean,
in case anybody's interested.
You know, wages in factories in, you know, China and Indonesia and places like that are, you know, probably less than a 20th of what they are in. Well,
just the fact that you can buy this for 200 quid and it's come halfway around the world, and that includes the transport and VAT.
You know,
I mean, shops make the profit at it. The distributors make. Albeit very small.
Yeah, very small.
And the distributors and all that you can actually sell it for 200 quid. Is and
that isn't our favourite bass to date, or our sort of the most kind of like jaw-dropping bass to date we had was still that relatively cheap Ibanez one, wasn't it? Where we just sort of went,
that was
how do they do that?
Yes.
But that's fine. I mean, again, the guys from YouTube will know obviously my involvement in guitar manufacturing with certain other brands, and you know, trust me, I've looked at what would it cost to try and make this same guitar in England versus what it costs to make them out in the Far East, and it's frightening. You know, it's a frightening cost difference. Yeah. So anyway, right, let's do the ABC thing.
We're gonna do that.
ABC. Come on, 1, 2, 3.
I will attempt to play the same thing.
Okay, attempt it. Plug it in first,
3
though.
times.
I think that helps.
What shall I play?
Honestly, plug the thing in, because then that will help. The people will not be able to hear the difference if you don't plug it in. Well, there we are. They all sounded kind of. I thought the Squire sounded pretty good on the slap sound, and I thought this one sounded pretty good when you did the sort of the finger style thing. It had a slightly bit more honk. I thought the American one probably sounded good on all 3 settings. But hey,
It's up. It's you
choose.
decide.
And of course, we're hearing it through this and in a certain room, and you're obviously hearing it through your headphones or speakers or whatever on your device.
Through your ears.
Yes, hopefully you're not listening
like.
to it through the speakers of an iPhone, because then I suspect they'll all sound relatively dreadful. But there we are. So that's it, really, isn't it? That concludes our, Squire versus Mexican Standard versus American Standard jazz bass review, shootout comparison thing.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's been useful, because it is a question I get asked a lot. Sort of people who are just starting out playing the bass. They say, well, look, what's the difference? So hopefully we've covered some of those questions.
I'm always a big fan of kind of just the. For me, the seismic shift in guitar making over the last 20 or 30 years hasn't been at the top end. It's been at the bottom end. Yeah. And the bottom end stuff has gone from being crap to really good. And the top end stuff, I guess, is people will say, is it ever going to be as good as it was back in the 50s? And you sort of go, I don't know. It's different, isn't it? I mean, back then you had, tiny master luthiers building tiny numbers of guitars, and from the sort of mid to late 60s and onwards, guitars even at the top end has been a relatively mass production kind of thing. And I if I'm honest, I think probably in the last 10 years or so the top end stuff probably has been as good as it's ever been in my lifetime of playing guitars. But for sure the gap between what's at the bottom and what's at the top is way smaller now than it was 20 years ago. But
on a personal level, what I'd say is it's kind of really down to what you can afford, because ultimately, this is the best bass. Thing is, if you haven't got 1,300 quid, there's nothing wrong with this. For 200 quid,
it shouldn't put you off.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Joining a band and doing all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
If you can afford a bit more, then get this one. And if you got enough money, get this one.
And I guess the same. Even over and above that, if you really want to. But anyway, look, that's it. So look, that's the end of All About the Bass for this week. Hope you're enjoying this series. If you are, feel free to subscribe. It's in somewhere below, usually.
Yeah, what do I get for that?
Our undying love and affection, I suspect.
Do it. I like it.
Right, that's it. I've been the captain.
I've been Nathan.
Every time there's this delayed pause whilst your brain kicks into gear, but that's why I love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.